Welcome in. This is 300 Yards to Unknown. I'm Rick Gaiman, and today we are going back for more, one of the most requested episodes ever. We're making it happen because it's instruction-based, and it helps a lot of you on your game. And joining me to break it all down, it's Greg DuCharme. Greg, this is it, man. We did one instruction episode, and my inbox filled up. It's good to have you.
Oh, it's great to be here, Rick. First of all, one of the best podcast names going. I love 300 Yards to Unknown. It's such a good name, and you do such a great job on it. So it's a pleasure to be here, one. And two, I can't believe it's the most requested. I can't believe how requested it is. So anytime you want, I'm all in. I love doing this stuff. It's my favorite.
Well, I appreciate it. I imagine, we are always on the hunt for that one tip, that one drill, that one swing that unlocks everything, Greg. So I imagine that if people took some positive away, they would be thirsting for more.
Well, I'll tell you this, first and foremost, and based on today's topic that we discussed earlier,
good topic.
It's important to know that if there was a magic wand, I would have broken it on myself. Okay. I got that line from a mentor of mine. And so here's the thing. It takes work. And that's really the secret sauce. Like Ben Hogan had a secret. Everybody talked about what's Ben Hogan's secret. And they thought it was some move in the swing. And I've fallen into it too. I've looked for the secret. What's the magic to the swing? And I don't really believe there is one. But it's the way you go about doing it. It's the work that you put in. It's the effort you put in, especially this time of year, that makes it all happen. And ultimately, that is the secret. It's the effort you can put in.
Certainly no substitute for hard work in most things, especially in the game of golf. So what we're going to talk about today, a very timely episode, because Greg, as you know, we are headed right towards holiday season, which means in most parts of the country, it is getting colder. Golf seasons may already be over. And this is the challenge every year where golfers are like, okay, it might be 3 or 4 months before I can get out onto the golf course again, maybe longer, depending on where you live. So today we are focusing on things that you can do to keep your game sharp during the winter time. Come on, that's great.
It's great. And you said the word challenge. It's a challenge. And in all challenge lies great opportunity. And that's why I'm so fired up about this episode, because this is the time where good players can become great players, and you can beat your competition. This is like that week in daily fantasy where nobody knows who's playing in the field. And the people who put in the work, they put in the time, they do the research, they get on RickRunGood.com and they figure out what the model is. Those are the players who they're licking their chops. And the players in the off season who come in and say, okay, I know that it's a little bit challenging to hit balls right now, but it's challenging for everybody. And so this is an opportunity for me to get ahead. And that's why I love this time of year, because this is when champions are born, right? And you think about your off season, and even if you're not looking to become a scratch player, your ambitions in the game aren't great, but there's something in your life that you want to improve, whether you want to become a better parent or run a better data golf website. The off season is the time when you really make those changes. And I mean, look, RickRunGood.com doesn't become what it is with sitting on the couch eating leftover turkey. I mean, that's not the recipe for success. You put in the work in the off season. So this is the time to go get it. It's a great opportunity.
I can assure you that is true. The offseason is very valuable for the world that I'm in. But what we figured is that we're going to try to cover as many different situations as possible. We've kind of broken this down into 3 different segments, Greg. You know, you guys if you're in Southern Florida and you're all year round, we'll get to you in a second. But we've kind of broken this down into a couple buckets, Greg. Basically, one bucket would be the golfers who have nothing but their home. Right? They're probably snowed in for the next couple of months. They're going to be able to maybe chip and putt on the carpet inside. The next bucket would be, hey, maybe you have a net. Maybe you can take full swings into a net. And then the third bucket would be maybe access to a simulator or a golf course, or maybe the simulator goes into the second bucket. But we're going to try to break this down into 3 different buckets so that we can kind of attack whether it's drills, mindset, things that can just help you stay sharp, help you improve over this winter time.
And as this levels up from that first bucket where you're just stuck indoors, all the things that those of you who are stuck indoors and those of you who can get outside, all the things we talk about in that first area, the base of the pyramid, if you will, these tips and drills will work, and they will help you, and you should be doing them. The cool part is this is for those of you like me, I live up in the Northeast. My golf season may have come to an end yesterday. Although it's a specifically short season for me because it's basically the fall time. But in that time, you have the opportunity to do the things that maybe they don't seem as fun, but their importance level is extreme. So even if you are in South Florida, these are the things you should be focusing on. And then you get to the next level and the next level. And if you are snowed in, there are still keys and concepts that you can apply when the springtime comes around. So they're still all extremely important to remember.
So bucket number 1, snowed in person with access to their house. I envision, Greg, this is someone who rolls putts on the carpet, maybe puts a mug at the end and tries to use that as a target. Maybe they have a putting mat. Who knows? But I'm sure we can find ways for them to improve their game while they're at home. Yes,
and there are a couple different directions you can go with this.
Yeah.
You break it down into areas of the game. Putting is it's an essential part of the game, and you can really make improvements. And again, even if you're in South Florida and the daylight is just getting a little short on you, and you're like me and your kids are asleep upstairs, then this is a great opportunity to get some work in on the greens and improve your stroke for the next day. If it's wintertime, it's for 4 months from now. So I'll start with putting. And a drill, I recommend getting a putting mat. It's a relatively inexpensive way to really hone in on your game. And I mean, my favorite putting mat company is called Big Moss. You can get a putting mat from them for Big Moss Golf for it's less than, depending on the size, you're talking about $200 or less. There are some bigger ones that are more, but it's an incredibly good, true, honest surface. So that's the first recommendation. But whether you have a putting mat or not, this is a great opportunity to do this drill that I love.
The putting mat obviously simulating regular greens as opposed to your carpet, which would be nice, or maybe your kitchen floor, which might run a little bit faster than Augusta National. But the putting mat allows you to kind of simulate, give you an opportunity to use a real target that is regulation cup size, which is already like half the battle when you start getting into these drills, I imagine.
Right. Well, and it also it allows there are some things in putting when you really get it where the sound is different. So if I'm playing on a green or listening to someone on a putting mat, let's say I'm in a scramble. That's a 4-person scramble, and there's a couple of higher handicaps, not necessarily great putters, and me. We've all been in this situation before where the first putt breaks 3 feet and the second putt doesn't break, and everybody's different. And now all of a sudden you have no idea what to do. Well, that's because of a spin you put on the ball. And so when you are on a carpet, depending on what your carpet is like, you can miss out on some of those sounds. When you get on a really true, honest putting mat, you can hear a true roll. And when you do the drill I'm about to share with you, you'll start to learn what that sounds like.
And if you are not a very good golfer, but you want to be part of the group and you want to be very valuable, become the guy who rolls in putts in the scramble. Because if that's all you do is give yourself a chance in a scramble, you are like the most valuable guy out there, and everyone will love you instantaneously. And instantaneously, doesn't matter if you shank every shot leading up to the green.
Instantaneously. You're the guy, you're the corporate worker. You go play in a corporate outing every, once a month or less, twice a year, and you can make putts. you're going to be a fan favorite away.
You're getting the next raise. I guarantee it. All right, Greg, what is this drill that we can work on at home to improve our putting with little to no equipment? Maybe it's a putting mat, but just getting the club in our hands. What's our drill?
Yeah, again, my preference is a putting mat, but it's not mandatory. You take a 2x4 or a piece of a windowsill. It's very simple. It's basically a straight edge that has a little bit of height. You want to have the ideal thing to have is like a piece of wood that's an L. It is a windowsill, but it's popped off. So you can stand it up and it's about 3 inches tall. Mm-hmm. It could be 2 inches tall, but I like 3 inches tall, and it sits on the ground. So it's in line. It's parallel to the hole, and you put a ball in there and your putter in there. So the toe of your putter is resting on the piece of wood, and you make strokes, keeping the piece of wood on, or keeping the putter on the piece of wood. And it keeps your putter in a very straight line, which is when you first get on this, you're going to say, oh, this teaches me a straight back, straight through putting stroke, which is fine. Although it's not really the purpose. The purpose is to keep the face square. And when you have the toe of your putter up against that piece of wood, again, it can be the floorboard in your house. It can be the baseboard in your house. Although I like it to be separate, because if you push too hard into the piece of wood, it'll move. Yeah. And you don't want to move it. So it gently glides along the piece of wood, but always stays in contact. And if you open the putter face in the backswing, which is a very common flaw in recreational players' putting strokes, if you keep that toe on the wall or on the piece of wood, then the face isn't going to open. And all of a sudden, especially if you get a straight putt, a really true straight putt, they will go in one after the next, after the next. And when you learn how to make a stroke like that, the line control becomes easy. And all of a sudden, you're going to be 3 months down the road hitting putts that they all start right on your line. And now you can focus on speed. And when you get the read right, it's going to go in. And at the same time, you'll be great from short range. But when you extend that out to longer putts, your likelihood of makes will increase dramatically.
So a couple things I like about this. Personally, I notice, and I can see it sometimes, when my putting stroke goes awry, it's offline immediately. It's going outside, and sometimes I just want to just stop and just start all over again, because I can feel it immediately. If I had a 2x4 or something on the toe of my putter, I would have knocked it over, or I would have moved the 2x4. The other thing is, Greg, I imagine the point, you roll putts with this, you actually hit balls with this. And I like drills that even if you're using a piece of equipment, or in this case, a very cheap piece of wood, you can actually hit golf balls with it and kind of get that similar feedback as well.
Yeah, you'll get the sound. It's very real. It's a very real experience that translates sometimes very quickly. But the key is, through this winter time, and you'll notice a theme throughout all of tonight, everything we talk about tonight. You don't need a lot of drills. You need to do a drill a lot. And so you have this one drill. You have this one piece of wood on this putting mat in your basement or in your living room or wherever it is. Maybe it's rolled up in the closet. You every time you have a chance, you hit a couple of putts. And it could be in 30 minutes for a day with 6 5-minute sessions. It could be 30 minutes at the end of the day. It could be 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes at night. But you do it every chance you get, and that adds up. Those reps add up. And then the second piece to the drill that's important, make sure you roll a couple of putts away from it. So you're going to roll them with the toe on the board.
Okay.
And that's what you want to do early on. But make sure you're at some point, when you get a hang of it and you understand the feel, back yourself away a couple of inches so the toe of your putter isn't touching it, and roll some putts pretending it's there. Because the one troubleshooting thing that can happen is in order to keep that pressure, to keep that contact, you can feel like you got to push your putter outside.
Okay.
And now if you don't practice without the board every once in a while, you might start taking it away outside when there's no resistance. That'd be the one troubleshooting thing you got to worry about. So just alternating those every once in a while will help you keep it. And all of a sudden your face will be just dead square through the stroke.
Very cheap, efficient, easy way to make sure your face is square, make sure your stroke is on point. Okay, so we talked to now. Do we want to move away from putting? Is there chipping? Is there what else can
Absolutely.
this person stuck inside the house for who the heck knows how long, probably itching, watching golf on TV as they travel to Hawaii and all these different places? What are they going to be able to do to further improve?
So you go to chipping now. What chipping requires, and chipping, pitching, short game, what this requires in the game of golf is a lot of detail. Just like putting and full swing, there's a lot of nuance to it. What shot are you going to play? What's the trajectory? What's the spin you're going to put on the ball? What shot do you play when? What's the lot? There's 1,000 things. We could do an entire episode on just short game alone.
Trust me, I need an entire episode on short game alone. My goodness, the variables. The variables. I never know. I can't even convince my brain what shot I'm trying to hit, let alone trying to go actually hit that shot, Greg.
So there's nothing you can do about that when you're in the northern part of the country in the wintertime. But that doesn't mean short game's out, because there's a basic skill that unlocks all those possibilities. Now you may have to go and learn them and practice them. So this doesn't guarantee that you're going to get up and down every time when you come out in the spring if you do this drill for a couple of months. But what it will do is it'll give you the building blocks to be able to learn, adjust, adapt, and have the ability to try and have a much stronger arsenal in your short game. So the key is understanding where the low point or where the club brushes the ground. And you have to have control of this. It's the number one fundamental in short game, because imagine this. You're trying to predict the distance the ball goes. Yeah. And you hit a shot once with the club face and you hit it again, but all of a sudden there's a head cover on your wedge. But you don't know that it's going to be there or not. Well, how hard are you going to hit it?
Yeah.
So now there's no feel. Feel comes from practice with consistent contact. And it's so we got to learn consistent contact, and we can do that in the winter.
This is literally remember when Tiger comes back and he's got the chipping yips and he says, I can't feel where the bottom is. I've lost the bottom. And I'm like, what in the world does that mean? This is what he means. He doesn't know if he's where the bottom of his club is and how he's going to make contact with this thing.
Right. And
he's the greatest ever.
He's the greatest ever. And he got lost there's no reason to get into the details on why he got lost. But the point is, if you lose the bottom, right, there's no amount of talent that can overcome that.
Right.
You're going to struggle because there's no prediction of distance. So this winter, you take a shoelace and you're on the carpet, and I would recommend taking 2 pieces of Scotch tape. They're this long, and you tape the ends down. So this shoelace is flat on the ground and it's not going to move too much, but it's not duct tape to where it's stuck there. It has a little bit of play, but if you touch it when you're setting the drill up, it's not going to move. And you just simply make chipping motions as if there were a ball there. It's an imaginary ball, and you're brushing your carpet. You're brushing the whatever surface you're standing on in front of the string. I recommend putting the string right in the middle of your stance, and you're going to make practice strokes just brushing in front of the string. And now all of a sudden you'll get a real feel for where do you hit the ground? Because you got to hit the ground. Right. And B, where is that? So now when you get outside, and if you level this up and you do have an opportunity to hit some balls in a simulator or to play some golf outside, you get a warm day, the ball goes where the string is, and you still brush in front of the string.
Are we swinging like the length of the string or perpendicular to the string?
No, perpendicular. Great question. Perpendicular to the string.
Got it.
So the string is like it's like a goal line.
Got it.
Okay. And all you want to do is brush in front of it. So you're taking your low point. I've never seen anybody in my career teaching have a low point or a brush point that's too far forward. It just doesn't happen. If you hit it thin, if you top it, it's likely that your club bottoms out too soon but misses the ground. and you actually catch the ball on the way up, especially in the bunker. People think all the time, I'm hitting the all ball in the bunker, so I'm not taking enough sand. So they try to get the low point farther back, but that exaggerates the problem. And the low point has to move forward, or the contact point, wherever the club first touches the ground. It's actually not the low point. That might be a bad term, but I'll call it the brush point or the contact point. It has to be ahead of where the ball is. Now in the bunker, it's not going to be ahead of it. It's just going to be closer to the ball than you think. But when you spend some time mastering the place where your club hits the ground, there's not a lie that's going to scare you. You'll be much more effective in rough. It's not going to be, you're not going to spin it back out of the rough, but the rough will affect it a lot less. A tight lie won't scare you. Yeah. In the bunker, you'll have control of where. That's the whole key, is knowing where do I want to hit the ground, and then you're not afraid of hitting the ground. And that's where I think the yips come from a lot. Is if my club hits the ground, I'm going to either chunk it or it's going to bounce into the ball and I'm going to skull it. But if you know where it's going to bottom out and you can make it bottom out ahead of the ball, then you're going to make ball first contact and you're now free to hit the ground. And it's such an important aspect of short game. And mastering that will unlock your capabilities.
So I'm noticing a trend here, all about consistency. We're getting more consistent with our putting stroke. We're getting more consistent about knowing where our contact or our brush point is in the short game. We are still stuck inside, Greg. We're looking out the window. We're seeing snow come down. Is there anything, this might be tough, full swing related that we can do without breaking a chandelier or causing destruction around the place?
Yes. Now, there are some places in my little townhouse here, I can make full swings, and I do from time to time, but you don't have to make full swings to improve. And in fact, the full swings, you don't really need to make in full speed, because there's no feedback when you're just hitting, when you're just swinging indoors. But what you can do is improve and master your grip. And this is the perfect time to do it, because nobody wants to be out there on the range in the springtime when you're just first getting back and having to make a grip change. You don't want to do that. So this is the time to master it. And I'll tell you a story, because it seems so 101. Oh, I got to work on my grip. But the very first lesson I ever saw a PGA Tour player get, I was a very young coach, not even coaching at the time. I was just observing Michael Breed teach, and he had this student, Darren Stiles. Darren is the leading money winner of all time. At least he was at the time, leading money winner of all time on the Korn Ferry Tour, which isn't necessarily a title you want to have. But the point is, the guy was a robot. And the thing that kept him from continuously having his tour card is just distance. But this guy was a robot. And this had nothing to do with the lesson. It was not discussed. Michael didn't talk about it once, but every 3 shots, he would take a second. He'd be nodding his head. Michael's giving him advice, and he's holding in his right hand. He's holding the club by the shaft down below the grip, and he's putting his left hand on the club, and he's just checking it, and he's listening, and he's looking at it. And he doesn't do it every swing. He does it about every 3rd swing. And then he puts his right hand on, and all of a sudden he's ready to go. Wow. And it stuck with me until this day, and it will always stick with me because he's a player at striving for the highest level, a level that none of us we will never know what it feels like to play golf at that level. And he's focused on the things that we think we're above or past.
Yeah, it's such an attention to detail to a seemingly nothing part of the game. However, you hear all the time, oh, the grip that's your connection to the club. You hear, the biggest thing that you can change without any skill is having the correct grip. So you hear that all the time, but as much as we hear it, I know we don't take it seriously. I don't take it seriously. No, I don't check ever. I just put my hand on it. So using this time where we're maybe not able to make full swings to train our brains to grip it correctly is already like you could already be 4 months ahead by the time you're back out on the golf course.
And it's so important. It's actually an advantage to be stuck inside and work on your grip because you don't have the connection to the ball. There's no result that this is tied to. So the grip, while it's so simple, it's one of the most challenging things to change. And the reason for that is it's uncomfortable. That's why people don't want to check it. They don't want to look at it because they hold it and it's comfortable and they like that. But when you can see comfortable and natural, these words, they don't really have any merit in the game. And things become natural or comfortable through effort and through work and through repetitiveness. So when you can take the monotonous task of mastering your grip and you can do it every single day, just like the drill against the wood and putting, just like the short game drill, when you can do it every day, all of a sudden it's natural.
This is my favorite because this is, you could literally be sitting on the couch binging Netflix with a golf club, putting a correct grip on, taking it off, putting a correct grip on, taking it off, it's super simple. Now, here would be the next question, Greg. How do we know it's the correct grip?
Okay. I was hoping you'd ask that. So the correct grip, there are a couple of keys that I look for. And when you look at on the PGA Tour, there are a number of different grips. So they can work. There's no one perfect grip.
And I will say, sorry, not to cut you off, but the one guy that stands out to me, and if you see him play out there, Adam Scott checks his grip every single shot. He holds it out to the side, kind of, I don't know if you can see it, kind of like this, and he makes sure and he checks it he's the one guy that I can think of that is like out there so that we can see that he's paying attention to it. So if you catch Adam Scott, he's constantly thinking about it.
Constantly. And this controls the face.
Yeah.
There are a few elements we'll get into, but if you heard our last episode, Rick, we talked about how important face control is. You can control the face, you can control the ball. And so you need a grip that allows you to control the club face. Now, you more likely than not, play with an open face, not a closed face. That's why you slice. That's why 90% of recreational players slice. So the very first thing you want to see, and the great thing about sitting on the couch is you're going to hold the club so the club head is up and the grip is low. All right, so you're sitting there, your feet are up, you're reclined on the couch, eating popcorn and holding the golf club. I hope it's not too buttery.
Getting better at golf.
Yeah.
Yeah, buttery, that'll mess your slide your grip around. It can be tough.
You gotta, don't be eating popcorn. But point is, you can do anything you want. This does not take physical exertion.
Right.
But what you're gonna do is when you look at your lead hand, your left hand for a right-handed player, you want to make sure you can see knuckles. And when you look at your trail hand or the right hand for a right-handed player, you don't want to be able to see any knuckles. And if you do, when you get into that position, so this is my right hand, my palm would be down to the ground or away from me. Now I can see the knuckles of this hand. And my trail hand, my right hand, I'm a right-handed player, you would be able to see those knuckles. I can't see them. You can, I can't.
Right.
And when the grip starts to rotate this way, now you can see my knuckles on my left hand. I can't. So now that grip is in a very weak or open position. The other thing is this part of your hand right here, it's called the heel pad.
Yeah.
This gets on the side of the grip or on the bottom of the grip. And now you get into a lot of trouble. So we want to have knuckles on the lead hand and the heel pad on the top of the grip. So if you have a grip with the brand of the grip is on top, whether it's Golf Pride or Lampkin or whatever that marking is on the top, that is the top center line of the grip. And you want to make sure the heel pad is sitting on top and you can see knuckles on both hands.
How many knuckles should I see? I'm a right-handed player, my left hand. How many knuckles should I see?
2 is a very baseline number.
Okay.
It is adjustable. There are some, if you want to hit a fade, you might be better off with 1. If you fight a slice, you might be better off with 3. 2 would be the very neutral, the very common. number.
The other thing is, okay, I'm not at 2. I got to get to 2. The other thing is, I always feel, and maybe this is from my baseball days, that the club is like in the palm of my hand, but I feel like it should be more in the fingers. Am I onto something here? I feel like I'm holding like a pipe or something. I don't know.
So it's a great point. It should be in the fingers more so than, especially if you fight a slice. Getting it in the fingers more will be helpful. In an ideal world, it kind of sits. There's this channel in your hand. I'm trying to mirror this, and I know
it was a lot harder than I thought it was when I put my hand up there.
Yeah.
If you're watching on YouTube, everything is mirrored, and we have no idea what we're doing. So you're not missing anything if you're just listening.
I think the easiest way is to look like it. So this channel right here, goes. It creates a nice pocket for your hand. So I like to have in the base here where your index finger meets the knuckle. That's where I like the grip to go into. And then it's slightly, by the time it gets to the pinky, it's sitting just on the palm side of that knuckle.
Right.
Not right. So it's on an angle kind of like that.
Okay.
It's
Got it.
This is very common. And many of you get a hole in your glove right here, way up high in the heel pad. And that part shouldn't even touch the club. It's the most common place for a hole. And that's because it's really high in your hand. And now all of a sudden, again, if you're watching on YouTube, there's a gap between this pen I'm holding and my pinky. And that gap allows the club to move. So now all of a sudden that club face is moving all around in your swing at the top. You got to re-grab it. You got to grip it a little tighter to feel like you have control of it. And it's a mess. And it leads to a weak club face. So you get it down in the fingers there. This is a really important connection that you should be mastering this winter, where the grip, where that you can see the pen here and the pinky, there's a really strong connection there, and there's no movement. Really important aspect of the grip. And so it's a slight angle, not completely in the fingers, but there's definitely no space in between the grip and your pinky.
I love it. I love it. It takes no skill whatsoever to be able to work on your grip and make sure you're ready to go come springtime or really any time. So let's move forward. And what I love about this, Greg, is the guy who has access to the net in his garage, which is kind of the bucket we're going to next. All that stuff we just talked about, it applies to them too, right? Like everybody can get something out of this. So let's say, how do we want to describe this next person? Someone who has net in garage, who can kind of make full swings, but not access to either a launch monitor or a course, something like that.
Again, you're right. This all the stuff we just talked about applies, and it's the base level fundamentals, which is not ability dependent. It's important to say that you could be a scratch player, you could be a tour player, and your focus is on fundamentals. In fact, I would say, in my experience, being around, I've never coached a tour player, but I've spent a lot of time around them and watched them interact with coaches and things like that. And the thing that always strikes me is a lesson with a tour player is far more simple than you would think. So in my tutelage with Michael and the time I spent a lot of time down at Medalist, where there were just a ton of tour players, including Tiger, Brooks Koepka, the very best players in the world, and their coaches would come out there, and I was the range guy. I'd watch the lessons, and I always left with, well, I knew that.
They didn't do anything.
It's so simple. Yeah. But that's because this game is simple. But the reason you have coaches is to remind you to do the simple things that you don't think are the answer. So the whole point of that is, when you're the guy in the net, whether you're a 5 handicap, a scratch player, an aspiring tour player, or a 25 handicap, you're never above these fundamentals. And if you can remember that, you can always excel, because they're really the foundation of the game. But you're hitting in a net in the garage. Yeah. The number one problem you have is you don't get any feedback from where the ball goes.
Everything seems like, I hit that one okay, or it hit the middle of the net. I don't know. It was whatever. Unless you can really get in tune with, I towed the heck out of it, or I shanked it. There's not much feedback there.
Yeah, and contact is a great thing to practice. So that would be one of the two things that you can really get out of hitting in a net. The other thing you can do is take some duct tape on both sides of the net and create a cross, a box, create some kind of target that in the middle, and now you're going to focus on your start line.
Okay. Some nets come with this, I believe now, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
They do.
Okay.
But not all of them.
Not all.
So,
mine does not. I'll tell you that.
Right. So you need a marker. And so you put a marker in the middle. You could even just have one strip right down the middle. And what you're going to do is, if you're a player who is trying to fade the ball, you want to start the ball left of for a right-handed player. I should say it this way to include our lefty friends. If you want to curve the ball from left to right, you want to start the ball on the left. If you want to curve it from right to left, you want to always make sure you're starting it on the right. The biggest problem you're going to have when you get out on the golf course when it comes to shot shape is what they call the double cross. When you start it on the side that it curves to, you're in real trouble. Yes, so it's a big problem. That's how it gets way offline.
Yeah.
So putting that line there will help you focus on start line, which again, if you're outside and you're in South Florida, working on your start line, you put an alignment stick out there 10, 15 feet away from you, start it to the right and curve it to the left, start it to the left and curve it to the right. Doesn't mean do both. Choose one, whatever your shot is, make sure it's starting opposite the way it curves. And you should always hit that shot, by the way. That may be a conversation for a different day, but I'm a huge believer in a single shot shape.
Oh, really?
And so it's absolutely the way to play. But when you have control of your start line, you will have control of the ball. So that would be my recommendation in a net. And then focusing on contact is another really important thing. There's some foot spray, like a Dr. Scholl's foot spray. You can spray on the club and it'll show you where exactly your contact was. You can get impact tape that shows you where your contact is. Learning how to get center face contact is critical for distance and spin and direction and everything.
Yeah. So what you can do, they make those stickers that go on there. I don't know how many swings you're supposed to take before you replace the swing, but yeah, spraying on, what is it, Dr. Scholl's, it'll make it'll like make a white, your club face will have like a little white, I don't want to call it residue, something on it. And then when you hit
film.
Yeah, and when you hit a golf ball, you will see, at least in my case, you are not centering it on the club face. But with practice and with consistency, you can figure it out. Okay, that's a good one, because that is a type of feedback, Greg. That's a type of feedback that you're kind of missing from seeing the ball go further than 6 feet. You are getting really solid feedback on the face of your club. I like that.
Yeah, and in modern technology, which this is beautiful, it's a great thing. But the difference between a toe hit and a center hit and a heel hit in the feel is reduced. And that's what our club manufacturers are trying to do. That they're trying to make it as forgiving as possible. So when you get on the course and you hit it on the toe, it's not the ball ends up closer to where you expect it to end up. But we still want to get that centered in as much as possible, because there are a lot of geeky things like gear effect, and the center face contact actually affects the side spin of the ball. So having whether you're playing with quote unquote game improvement irons or blade irons, having center face contact will help you improve the direction of the shot as well as the consistency and the distance.
I love that. There's something that I've seen. I have a lot of questions about that Bryson DeChambeau is making very popular. We'll get to that in just a second, but let's just go to guy in South Florida who has probably access to a golf course. Maybe you have access to a launch monitor or a simulator where you can get some metrics. This person's out there playing. Is there truly an off season? Is there a time to say, okay, I'm going to hone in on my fundamentals? Like, what should this person be focusing on this winter?
Well, the thing is, if you live in South Florida, this may not be the off season. It may be the peak season.
Oh, there you go.
And because the summertime gets really hot. And so, many of the tournaments at the clubs, and point being, it doesn't make a difference either way. What you want to be working on in your game is, like I just said, you want to make sure you have a single shot shape.
Yeah.
And this is it's a really important thing. One of the number one things that I hear, Rick, is with the people that I'm fortunate enough to coach, I hear a little bit less of I slice the ball than the numbers would say. But the number one thing that I do hear is I want to be more consistent. And when you start to ask questions, you want consistency, but you don't practice consistency. You don't practice the same things over and over again, but you want to be more consistent. And when you talk that out and you say, okay, I want to be more consistent. Okay, well, what are you doing to do that? And you start to answer those hard questions, and you're going to realize I'm not doing anything.
Right.
Do you have a routine? Do you have something that you practice every day? Are you going in the same direction, or are you searching every day? And it's like you think tomorrow when I practice, I'll find consistency. But no, that's not the case. You're going to find consistency through, who knows, it could be a week. It could be 5 years. I don't know how long it's going to take. It varies for given individuals. It varies how big of a change you're making. It varies based on where you are and what your talent level is. But in order to have, this is one of my favorite quotes. In order to have consistency, you have to do things consistently. So you have to do these things over and over and over and over again. And you have to have a single shot shape in mind. You're not going to become, you don't want to become like the 9-shot window that Tiger talked about.
Yeah.
Is great. That's not your goal.
He's Tiger Woods, right? And most people will have a natural shot shape, Greg. Now, I imagine for most people, it is left to right if you are a right-handed player, which is a slice. But if you talk about controlling the club face, something we've talked about before, maybe you turn your slice into a cut or a fade, and you can at least control it and you know it, right? Most people have a natural shape.
Yes. And what you have to learn how to do is match the shape with your start line. So I'm okay with either way. For players who struggle with distance, you might be better off hitting a draw. My personal preference is a fade at the highest level. The preference is quite convincingly a fade.
Seems that
because
way.
Yeah. And the reason is when you have the speed, what's the easiest way to say this? A fade pattern requires a quieter club face. A draw pattern asks for a more active club face. So you need the face to close a little bit more through the hit for a draw.
Right.
And well, what you really need is the path to come from the inside. So you have a path that's going out. Let's just take a right-handed player.
Yes.
The path is going out to the right. The face has to point left of that path, but it still has to be right of the target. But that means that the face is pointed to the right and it has to close on the way through. And that can be more difficult to time. Whereas a fade pattern, the path is coming out to in. So it's moving to the left. And the natural athletic instinct is to keep that face open. Because if the face closes, it's going to go left and you're going to be in trouble. So I've always thought over the top players are closer to being consistent than under the top players. They just have to learn how to make it all work and how to find the timing and believe that it's good, but you're closer because it asks for a quiet club face. So the point is, if you're outdoors, whether this is your peak season or your off season, you need to be consistently practicing your shot shape and mirroring your start line. So your start line is opposite your curve. And when you can master that fundamental, you'll play consistent golf.
Consistent has been the key word for this episode. One thing I want to throw in there before we get into speed training is if you don't have access to a launch monitor or a simulator, which you might not, but there are now options that are much cheaper, much smaller. PGA Tour Superstore. I know the one near me. You can go to the PGA Tour Superstore and you can rent a half hour in their simulator for $10. And it's like, okay. And they rarely ever kick you out of there. And one of the things, Greg, that I've gotten used to doing, or I've started doing, and I've learned a lot about my game, is I'll hit 10 shots with every single one of my clubs or 5 shots or whatever it is, and look at the distance discrepancies. When I pure a stock 7 iron and it goes 160, that's great, but that's not happening every time. And when I get out on the golf course, knowing I'll think to myself, okay, I'd rather miss this short than long. And I know if I don't hit this 7 iron great, it might go 150 instead of 160. I'm going to hit a 7 instead of a 6, right? But using the technology, using access to my PGA Tour Superstore, I'm getting numbers that way, and I can do that in the snow.
There are so many opportunities. And in the Northeast, these things are popping up all over the place where there's access to indoor golf. There's such a buzz for it. It's great. You can find somewhere to go. So I recommend doing it and I know that, budgeting and finances are a factor here, but you can find the time to do it every once in a while. Find the, one night instead of ordering takeout, you're going to save it and save up to go hit balls in the simulator one day. There are always things you can do if you put your mind to it. But, when you're in a simulator, what you're talking about, Rick, is your shot discrepancy or your shot pattern. Correct. And when you're practicing, when you're taking lessons, when you're working on your swing, the goal is to reduce the shot discrepancy. Yeah. So your 7 iron, the great thing about a simulator, even the one thing that a simulator is better at than being outside on the range is you can find out what your actual dispersion is, left and right, long and short. It tracks you have all the data right there. So if your 7 iron's going 150 to 175, that's too big of a gap. And so you have an issue with distance control. And that's where you can be spending some of your time practicing. Maybe you got to practice making ball first contact more often. Maybe it's controlling the club face a little bit more consistently. So your distance control gets tighter. That's always the goal.
Right.
That's why single shot shape golf is the way to go, because it takes your left-right pattern and it will shrink it. And it will likely also take your long and short pattern and shrink that too. So yeah, I agree with you. Getting into a simulator is extremely important. And there are so many ways to utilize that. But that's one way. It highlights your weaknesses.
That I was going to say, even if you're just learning more about your own game, you're getting something out of it. Whether you realize that you need to work on something or whatever it is, you're learning something about your game. Finally, Greg, the topic of seemingly the year, the past 2 years, is speed training. We see Bryson do it all the time. He posted on his own YouTube channel. There are, I imagine, lots of different ways that one could try to find more distance. But the question I pose to you is, should we be speed training? And if so, what does that look like for an average or recreational golfer?
I'm gonna spin this around, Rick. Okay. I'll ask you.
Okay.
You are a data guy. You have more data than anybody in the game. Do you think, based on what you've seen at the highest level, do you think speed training is important?
Emphatic, yes. It is not only the present, but seemingly the future. And we've talked about this a ton on the First Cut pod. We've talked about this a ton. Distance makes up for a lot of other things. And then being closer to the hole, hitting shorter clubs, the dispersion that we talked about. Yes, and yes. Speed training should be done. Now, for me, what is my speed training is going to look different than Bryson DeChambeau's speed training, Greg.
Yes, of course. But you're right. Speed is the force multiplier. There is no defense for speed. It's the ultimate advantage. And whether you don't have a lot of it or you have a lot, everybody will benefit from hitting it farther. A guy in Bryson who hit it 305 yards off the tee changed his game by adding distance.
Yes.
And there were a lot of naysayers when he did.
If you hit it 200 yards and now you can hit it 215, that might change your game in a big way when you're trying to hit approaches into par fours.
Yes, it doubles. That's the coolest thing about it is it doubles. That's why I call it a force multiplier. It's not just more length off the tee. It's shorter clubs into the green by 2. If you increase your distance by 10 yards, you're going to have 2 clubs less into the green at least. Massive. go out there when you get in a simulator, test your 6-iron versus your 8-iron. See which one has a smaller discrepancy. So what do you do? How do you get more speed?
How do we do it? What do we do?
There are a lot of ways to get more distance. What we really want to get is more clubhead speed, and that will translate into more distance. So it's important to point out first that I love the term speed training. And it's something that I did a couple years ago before Bryson did this. But I had a guy, his name was Jacob Bowden. He had this program called Swingman Golf. And he came down to talk to us at the academy and showed us what he did and gave us this program. And so we did it. Myself and Bob Biganet, who was another one of the coaches there, we committed to it for a whole summer. And there's no technique involved there, which is one of the ways to increase distance. Technique is huge. Centerness of contact is huge. Club fitting is huge. There are a lot of ways to do it. But this is pure clubhead speed, which will translate into ball speed and ultimately distance. And again, it's a formula, but there's no replacement for speed. That's your ultimate limiter in how far you can hit the ball. So basically, I went from being what I thought was a long hitter. I had about 113 mile an hour clubhead speed, which now is nothing. And
you're so lame now.
Yeah, so lame. But I was up at 121 in 6 weeks.
113
flying.
to 121?
Yeah, in 6 weeks. And I'm back closer to 113 now. I haven't done my speed training in a couple of years, which is my own fault. But the way you do this is you practice your max speed. And this is what Jacob said to me, which was so brilliantly simple. It's right up my alley. He said, the best way to increase your clubhead speed is to practice swinging faster. And
okay. I wish who could have thought of that?
Who could have thought of that? But the truth is, you don't think of that.
No, I didn't.
Right. And so I laughed and I thought that is unbelievable advice. So basically, at the very base level, what you can do is simply practice swinging faster. To get a little more detailed, my recommendation is there's this great little device out there, a little radar device called Swing Radar. And I think it's Swing Radar. It's a little gray. It's a little box about this big.
It's called Swing Radar.
Yeah, it's gray and blue. I think they have a red one too. I've used the blue one, so I can't speak to the red one. But anyway, it's about $100 or something like that.
It looks like there's maybe 2 models, 100 to $150, something like that.
It's right in there. And the coolest thing about this device is it measures your swing speed, whether you hit a ball or not. You can use a ball and you don't have to use a ball.
Oh, I see.
Which allows you to track your success in training, not just when you're out on the range or hitting in a net or anything like that. You can do it when you're training. And what I mean by training is you want to practice swinging fast with three different areas. One is with your driver, currently as is. One is with something light. This may be your driver upside down, where you're swinging the grip end of the club. Not my favorite, but it's an easy one. My favorite is a product called the Speed Whoosh, which is basically an alignment stick with a grip on it and a little ball on the end that slides up and down. You don't need the ball to be sliding up and down for this part. You can leave it at the end. But the point is it's something light. You could use an alignment stick. You might want to put some hockey tape or electrical tape on the end so you don't throw the thing. But you practice with something, your driver, something light, and something heavy or resistance. Heavy and resistance.
What would an example of that be?
You could put a donut on your driver, like one of those baseball donuts.
Yeah, they make small ones for golf clubs.
Yeah, they do. So you could. That's a very simple thing you could do. There are swing fans you can put on your own driver. There are also swing fans you can get that are just fans. That's a resistance device, the most common resistance device. And I don't think there's any reason to go with anything other than a fan if you're going to go resistance. And then there are also clubs. They're not clubs. They're just shafts that are made for this that are a lot heavier. And I can see this product right now. I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, there are a lot of heavy things you can swing.
Is it just a matter of swinging these light, medium, and heavy things as fast as we possibly can, and then teaching your body that, like, your body learns from that?
This is the first part, but the key is that you measure it. You have to measure it so you can strive to beat it. Yeah. And that's really the difference. If you're just swinging it as fast as you can, you don't know what it's hard to tell. And there's no way to measure. There's no way to strive for more. So you get yourself a notebook and you write down your speeds with a light, heavy, and your driver at first. No ball. You don't need a ball. And then the next day, 2 days later, this is an every other day program. You do it every other day. Every day is too much. You need time to recover. In fact, you can do it twice a week. Twice a week will get you results. I prefer 3. I'm a little bit of a go-getter. So if, let's say you're doing this 3 days a week, and the first day you get 100 miles an hour with your driver. The next day you want to make sure you beat that. But every swing is trying to get faster than the one before. So all this is 30 swings. It's 10 reps with a driver. It's 10 reps with something light. It's 10 reps with something heavy. 30 swings. And in all 30 reps, you're trying to beat your previous swing. You're trying to beat your record.
You should really be taking, like, you should be like, getting set, starting from your normal spot and swinging. Because I know I won't end one swing before I start the next, right?
There's no momentum. This is not a momentum.
Not a momentum game.
It's like you're going to hit a ball. Okay. Yeah. And you're seeing how fast you can go. So that's one piece of this. And that piece alone will help. You'll get faster. You probably won't go from 113 to 121. You're probably not going to get an 8 mile an hour clubhead speed difference, but you can get a really big jump from simply doing that. So the next piece is what they call isometric training, which basically is it's exercising without moving. It's resistance training.
I'm sold already.
Right. Trust me, it's a workout. But if you just stood up against a wall and you pushed as hard as you could, you wouldn't really move, but you would be really tired by the end.
Yeah.
And so that's the concept. But it's basically these bands that you get. And I'll look around, Rick, and I'll send you the bands that I had. I got to do a little digging to find the name of them. But they're not specific to this exercise. Okay. If you have some bands, resistance bands with different different weights.
Yeah, different colors or different weights. And okay.
Yeah. And so what you're looking for is something that you can put into a doorway or clip onto a bar if you have a workout room or something like that. I used to clip it onto a cart, and then you're going to have a handle on the other end. Mm-hmm. And in your golf posture, there are 3 positions you're going to train in. The first is the top of your backswing. So you're going to get in there, and the band, the point of the band is going to be basically toward what would be the target, and it's going to come behind your head, over your shoulders.
Oh,
and you're going to push.
Okay.
So this is top of your backswing, and you're pushing away from the target, and you're holding it, and you're holding it for 10 seconds. Okay. And by the time you get to 10 seconds, you're going to start to shake. Yeah. Like crazy. You'll shake. Maybe not on the first set. You're going to do 3 sets of these 3 positions. The second one, you're going to now turn around if you leave the thing fixed. And by the way, you want the where you anchor this thing, you always want it to be at the height. So the band is parallel to the ground. Okay. So when you practice at the top of the backswing, it's attached up high. That's why a door frame is great, because you can move the height. So it's up high where your hands would be at the top of your backswing.
Got it.
The next one, you're going to turn around, and this is now a halfway down position, as if you're in the downswing, halfway down. So your arm may be parallel to the ground. And the exact point doesn't have to be exactly where I would put it, but it should be consistent.
Right.
So I like the arms to be parallel to the ground, and you're mimicking what you think your body should look like as you're in your way down. So your hips are starting to open, the chest may be starting to open, the trail elbow has a little bend to it, and there's a twist going on, and you hold it in this position for 10 seconds.
Okay.
You'll start to shake. And then the last one, you're now going to move the place where this is attached to in the door frame down a little bit lower.
Yeah.
And now we're going to get into impact.
Okay.
So now you set up in an impact position and you hold this band where now your hips may be facing the target.
Yeah.
Body's starting to open up a little bit. Trail elbow still has a little bend to it. And you're going to hold that for 10 seconds. And if you do 3 sets of that, this is simple. This doesn't take a lot of time. This isn't a Bryson DeChambeau kind of workout.
No.
You can do this with the 30 swings in a half hour, easy.
So you are just strengthening the muscles that you are going to ask to swing the golf club faster. You're keeping track of all of it. You are engaging the right areas and all that stuff, and just teaching your body how to get this ball through the swing faster.
And when you train the muscles with the isometric training and you practice swinging faster, you're developing speed and strength at the same time. And this will lead to, you guessed it, speed. The body has to be strong enough to handle the speed. The strength of your muscles will at some point be a limiter in how fast you can move the club.
Okay, good call. Yeah.
But it's not to say that strength is what creates the speed, but strength is kind of the gatekeeper to speed. So somebody who can't hold on to, like, grip strength, in all the studies that they've done, they found grip strength to be really important in speed. And if you don't have a lot of strength, that's a limiter in how fast you can swing the club, because you'll let go of it and you're not going to do that. So your speed will be governed by your grip strength. And that's why one of the reasons why Bryson talks about grip strength so much. He talked about all the time. It's really important. And by the way, one more thing with isometric training. If you're feeling a little spicy, you want to up this thing a little bit. It's not enough. One thing, you're going to up the weight. You should try to up the weight every session. Okay. You're not going to want to do it. You're looking at me right now thinking that's easy. Especially if you're, in the gym and active, you're thinking that's easy. But by the time the second day comes around, you're gonna be saying, "Do I really have to speed train again?" And you got to up the weight. You got to up the resistance. Doesn't have to be crazy. You don't have to start crazy, but you got to up it every time. But the next thing that you do is, instead of just doing 3 sets of the 3 positions, you do them in addition with one hand. So you go
instead
lighter
of
weight.
Being here, do I do both hands?
Yeah, you would do both hands. And for that, you don't need to do 3 reps with each hand. Your arms will fall off.
Yeah. I'm mimicking it and I'm already tired.
Yeah, exactly. So you do it you'll do it with your trail hand. You'll do it with your lead hand. Same position. So you start with both hands and then you take one off.
Right.
And the weight, you've reduced the weight when you go to one hand. And I'm sorry if that was really obvious, but that's what you're doing. And that program.
Yeah.
That's there. You can level up from there too, but that program right there will increase your speed dramatically. 3 times a week. It's 30 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week with full effort and full tracking, and you will be flying by the time spring rolls around.
I'm on Amazon right now buying a swing speed radar is what it's called. Yep. Okay, that is. We'll try it. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'll do it.
It's a huge. The radar is a huge investment that is massively important. A lot of the things we talk, like the putting mat, you don't need one. You want to go to a simulator, okay. Yeah. But
or a shoelace,
there are things you can do around it. The shoelace, there's a lot of things that are low budget here.
Yeah.
But the radar is, you won't see the results without it. You just won't, because you have to measure.
You got to like
because
play,
the
you gotta like
measurement,
play against yourself. You got to like, you got to
yes,
improve.
it's so important. So, and again, writing it down in the journal is the other thing that it'll keep you accountable. It'll keep you striving forward. It'll keep you looking for more. And it's so important, measuring and writing down your progress. And it'll also help you stay consistent. And I would also, in the journal, I'd write down how many putts in a row you made on the board.
Yeah.
And then how many putts did you make off the board? How many times in a row did you bottom out the club ahead of the shoelace?
There's a reason that all of these, you know, the Peloton or whatever, like they all gamify everything, right? Because if you can see it, if you can see what maybe other people are doing or what you've done in the past, try to get these PRs, these personal records, it is motivating. So tracking all of it is important.
And that's what we need now, because again, it's monotonous.
Yeah.
We talked about what? A speed training program. We talked about how you hold the club when you're sitting on the couch.
Yeah,
we talked about making the club hit the ground on one side of a shoelace and dragging your putter along a piece of wood. Right? These are not the most.
This has been the worst podcast ever. What are we doing here?
These things they're not sexy. But the monotonous training is what will lead to success. And so you need to make it a little more fun. You need to write it down like Peloton and gamify it and compete against yourself.
Yeah.
And it will keep you to the task, and it will keep you from saying this is easy. It'll keep you saying I can do better than that.
That's Greg DuCharme. You can follow him on Twitter at @TheRealGFD. Greg, you have given us a lot of really good things to go work on. I'm very interested in speed training. I'll give it a crack. But as always, thank you, my friend. This is valuable stuff. I cannot wait to try it.
Thank you for having me, Rick. If you have any questions, you can get at me on Twitter. You can send me an email, greg@michaelbreed.com. I'm always happy to help. I love helping people improve their game. It's my background, my passion, and you can always get me there. So, Rick, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure. And as I said, I'm happy to do it anytime.